I'm Elizabeth at Literary Princess, and today I'm doing the Why Haven't I Read These Books Yet tag. So this tag was created by Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, and I wasn't tagged in it, but I saw AJ from AJ Dunn Reads and Writes do this, and I think it's a great idea for a tag, especially since I have a million books I haven't read yet. So I have plenty to talk about. Let's jump right in. The first prompt is a classic book, and I had plenty to choose from, but I decided to go with Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This is like one of his most famous too, and why haven't I read it? I don't know. I bought it a while ago, and I've read other Thomas Hardy books. Actually have to read 2 more Thomas Hardy books this month, probably not this month, but and to be fair, I was going to read this. I had put this on my exam list, and then when I brought it to my committee members, the committee advisor said, like, I don't think you really need Far from the Madding Crowd. And I was like, okay, and took it off because I'm not going to read books that I don't have to read when I already have to read a million books. But I've heard amazing things about this, and I'm looking at the description on the back, and it sounds like something I'd really enjoy, so I'll read that for you. Beautiful, capricious Bathsheba Everdeen, okay, Hardy, is too wild to make a living as a governess, an untamed spirit who recoils at the idea of being regarded as a man's property. She captivates worthy farmer Gabriel Oak and sparks an obsessive attraction in her neighbor William Boldwood after sending him a playful valentine. Bathsheba's third suitor is dashing, vain Sergeant Frank Troy, who has already impregnated one local girl and consigned her to a desperate fate. Marriage proposals abound and decisions are made that have tragic repercussions as events play out with unstoppable motive force. This sounds so good. Why haven't I read this? Yeah, I really want to read this. I don't have time to read this right now. After exams. All right, the next prompt is a fiction book, and again, I had plenty to choose from. So I decided to go with one by my favorite author, and the only one by her that I have not read. This is Night Watch by Sarah Waters. This is a historical fiction, to be specific, and I adore Sarah Waters. I have read all of her other books. I read like 3 of hers, and then asked my mom for all the rest of hers in this very specific cover, because these covers are amazing. And then I've read them all except Night Watch. And why? It takes place in World War II. And I don't really like World War II books. I don't like war books in general. Like, I don't like World War I books either. I don't like Civil War books. I don't like Revolutionary War books. I don't like war. I don't care. Not that I don't care, but like, I don't really like reading it. There are a few books that are set during wars that I've enjoyed, but generally speaking, I don't enjoy reading books that are set during the wars. And especially World War II. I don't know if it's just because there's so many. But I'll read this. Tender and tragic, set against the turbulent backdrop of wartime Britain, The Night Watch is the extraordinary story of 4 Londoners. Kay, who wanders the streets in mannish clothes, restless and searching. Helen, who harbors a troubling secret. Viv, a glamour girl, recklessly loyal to her soldier lover. And Duncan, an apparent innocent struggling with demons of his own. Moving back through the 1940s, through air raids, blacked out streets, illicit liaisons, and sexual adventure to end with its beginning in 1941. This is an astonishing novel. It sounds really good, and it sounds like it has a lot of the typical stuff that Sarah Waters writes about that I enjoy. We've got Kay, sounds like she's doing some cross-dressing, love that. We've got Helen with a troubling secret, love that. We've got illicit liaisons and sexual adventures. Love that. But I'm just like, World War II. I will read it eventually. It's just going to have to be at the very right moment. Prompt number 3 is a nonfiction book. And I do have a copy of this book, but I keep my nonfiction all at campus. So I'm just gonna put up a little picture of it here. This is Jane Austen, A Life by Claire Tomlin, or Tomlin? I'm not entirely sure how that's pronounced. But it is a biography of Jane Austen, and I will read quickly the summary. At her death in 1817, Jane Austen left the world 6 of the most beloved novels written in English, but her short-sighted family destroyed the bulk of her letters, and if she kept any diaries, they did not survive her. Now, acclaimed biographer Claire Tomlin has filled the gaps in the record, creating a remarkably fresh and convincing portrait of the woman and the writer. While most Austen biographers have accepted the assertion of Jane's brother Henry that my dear sister's life was not a life of events, Tomlin shows that, on the contrary, Austen's brief life was fraught with upheaval. Tomlin provides detailed and absorbing accounts of Austen's ill-fated love for a young Irishman, her frequent travels and extended visits to London, her close friendship with a worldly cousin whose French husband met his death on the guillotine, her brother's naval service in the Napoleonic Wars and in the colonies, and thus shatters the myth of Jane Austen as a sheltered and homebound spinster whose knowledge of the world was limited to the view from a Hampshire village. I mean, I love literary biographies, and I love Jane Austen. She's one of my top women writers, like probably just below the Bronte sisters. Why haven't I picked it up when I have owned it for ages? I don't know. I've never had the chance. I think I started reading it when I first bought it, but I wasn't in the mood. And then I just haven't picked it up since. Usually when I go for a literary biography, I do gravitate toward the Brontes because they're my girls. But I don't know, I really want to read this. I just haven't had to for any research or school stuff. Maybe after exams. I'm going to say that a lot. All right, prompt number 4 is a genre book, and I decided to go with a fantasy book, specifically a fairy tale retelling. This is Dark and Deepest Red by Anna Marie McLemore. So I have read one other of McLemore's books. It was Blanca and Roja, which was a retelling of Snow White and Rose Red, as well as a bit of Swan Lake and the Ugly Duckling in there. And it was phenomenal. I loved it. So when this was announced to be coming out, like the next year, I was so excited. And I got it for either a birthday or Christmas or whatever. And then I never picked it up. So I will read the summary once again. Summer 1518. A strange sickness sweeps through Strasbourg, France. Women dance in the streets without stopping, some until they fall down dead. As rumors of witchcraft and demon possession spread, suspicion turns toward Lavinia Blas and her family, and Lavinia may have to do the unimaginable to save herself and everyone she loves. 5 centuries later, a pair of beautiful red shoes seal themselves to Rosella Olivia's feet, making her dance uncontrollably. They draw her toward a boy who knows the dancing fever's history better than anyone, Emile, whose family was blamed for the fever 500 years ago. But there's more to what happened in 1518 than even Emile knows, and discovering the truth may determine whether Rosella survives the red shoes. Sounds fantastic! I love fairy tale retellings. I've never read a retelling of the red shoes. There aren't very many out there, so, why haven't I read this? I think a lot of it has to do with, I know I want to do a Fairy Tale Friday post for it on my blog, and those are kind of intensive. It's a lot of research and writing because I look at different variations of the tales and see which ones has the author brought in, what ones does the author leave out, what do they change. And it's kind of academic work. And since I'm constantly doing academic work for school. I don't really want to do any more academic work. So even though I know I really want to read this book and write this post, I don't want to write this post right now. So I'm kind of putting off reading the book, but I really do want to read it. Maybe after exams are done. Also, the cover's gorgeous. All right, and the final prompt is the book owned for the longest time but not read yet. And I had to think about this for a while because I was like, when did I buy this? When did I buy you? But I'm not sure if this is really the book I've owned for the longest time, but it is a pretty good contender because I bought it when I was 12 or 13. And I'm now 29, and I'll just let you do that math and I won't think about it. But this is Cujo by Stephen King. I bought this at a library book sale for like $1. Again, back when I was 12 or 13 and I had first discovered Stephen King. And I mean, I had watched the movie Stand By Me, then read the novella The Body, and after that I got into Carrie, Christine, Salem's Lot, Firestarter, and a few others, and I was just totally on board with Stephen King, so I bought a bunch of other Stephen King books, including Cujo. And then, I don't know what happened. It's not that I stopped reading Stephen King, but I kind of took a break for a while, and this just, like, I fully intended to read it, but I just didn't. And then, as I got older and was still continuing to read Stephen King novels, I realized that I didn't want to read this because the dog dies. That's not a spoiler. That's like, everybody knows that about the book. I feel like the dog gets rabies and the dog dies at the end. And I don't do good when the dog dies. I do very poorly when the dog dies. I've stopped reading books when the dog dies, and I didn't realize the dog was going to die. So for years, I have had this on my shelf and like haven't gotten rid of it because it's Stephen King and he's probably my favorite contemporary author. But I'm like, I'm not going to read this. And then AJ, who I mentioned earlier from AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, is doing the Stephen King reading project where they read chronologically a book from Stephen King each month. And they had their video on Cujo. And it sounds so good. And they gave it 5 stars. And I was like, okay, I'm convinced I'm going to read this. But it's going to need to be at the right time because, I mean, the dog still dies. Nothing changed there. So I'm going to need to do this when I am like in a very emotionally stable place to kind of minimize the amount of sadness I'm going to experience. Because if I read this when I'm already feeling depressed, like I'll just be on the floor sobbing my eyes out, and my husband's gonna come home from work and be like, what happened? I'll be like, the dog died. And he'll be like, why did you read the book? You know the dog dies. So I need to be in a very happy place emotionally to read this. And then I'll still cry, but it won't be as bad. So it's not going to be for a while, but it will happen eventually. All right, and then the last prompt is to tag people, which I'm not going to do because I don't know who has done this and who would want to do this. But if you want to do this, consider yourself tagged by me. Let me know down in the comments below, have you read any of these? What did you think? Is there one that you're like, Elizabeth, pick that up now? Or are you like, you can skip that one? And let me know what some of your answers to these prompts are. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.